What's up, everybody? This is the Sports League podcast. Back for another week. I'm your host, Alex Leak. We got Amanda back on the show as always. Amanda, another great week of football, and we're winding the season down. One more week to go. Playoff picture starting to clear up, and like I said, my favorite time of year is we get like playoff football already, like desperate teams, trying to stay alive. It's a lot of fun.
It is, and I like that we're getting to see some of these teams' true colors. Like there were some teams that have been talked up all season who are completely falling apart, and that you and I have kind of doubted. So it's nice feeling validated in some of our opinions.
Yeah, absolutely. This is make it or break it time of the year, and when you're all the talk all season long, it gets validated in these final weeks and into the playoffs. So it proves people right and proves people wrong. That's why I love it too.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
I've been proved right most of the season at this point. I mean, what is my lead on you now?
like 9 games, and it could have been 10 twice, and I'm keeping it under double digits, so I'm
So
hanging in
Alex said he was going to switch to the Vikings against the Packers.
there.
I was going into that game just, stressed out, late season Packers and I talked him out of switching. So he is welcome that it's not 10 games, guys.
I it would have served me right for picking a rookie Jaron Hall in that game. And man, your boy Jordan Love, he's been on fire.
Yeah, he is having a year and it's nice to see because we have talked time and time again about how Packers fans kind of came into this season with no expectations, like a 4-win team, a 10-win team, like I have no idea. But it's been nice to see how well Jordan Love is connecting with all of these young receivers and spreading the ball around. And, our number one wide receiver has been out how many weeks this season? But still, I
Hmm.
mean, Jordan is connecting with people. He was what, Offensive Player of the Week this week,
Yeah.
that performance. And it's been a great educational year as far as who he is and what he has. And, if he has what he takes, I think he can grow into a very good quarterback and kind of be the franchise quarterback moving forward. But the franchise needs to change a couple other things and help him out a little bit.
Yeah, and it'll be prove it time. Can he win Week 18, get into the playoffs, win a playoff game? That's where the narratives are really written that follow you all off season and into the next year. Speaking of that, on Thursday night we had Joe Flacco and the Browns in a game that we expected them to take care of business at home against the Jets, and Flacco once again absolutely balling, comes out on fire. Browns jump out to a 27-7 lead and look like they're just gonna, put up possibly 50 on them. 37-20 is the final, but they scored 34 in the first half. So um, Flacco has been the best midseason addition for any team, and the Browns clinch a playoff spot for the first time since 2020. you know, all the talk was about Deshaun Watson, being the big name quarterback, the big money quarterback. And Flacco has this team hot and going into the playoffs. It's a crazy year for the Browns after losing Nick Chubb and all the injuries and drama they've had to go through. They're right here and they're going to be playing some meaningful football here in January.
Yeah, and this game was interesting because, the Browns came in super hot. It was what, 34-17 at halftime, and then both teams only scored a field goal in the second half. But
Hmm.
looking at how the Browns played in the first half, going into that third quarter, I was curious if it was going to be a situation where they pulled off the gas and then the Jets kind of woke up and played a second half. And I was a little nervous that was going to happen. Obviously, it didn't. But the Browns have been great at overcoming adversity. I mean, Amari Cooper was a very late scratch for Cleveland. He had that heel injury, and then Elijah Moore went down in the second quarter. So, on top of all the injuries they've already had, they were still losing players during and before the game, and they still, I mean, had a great high-scoring first half, and their defense showed up and held out to a 17-point win at the end of the game. So, I'm really proud of these Browns, and after the season they've endured, like, man, those fans deserve a Super Bowl win. Talk about ups and downs and whiplash, man.
Yeah, and that's where the number one defense in football comes into play. Like the offense can put up 34 and a half, and then but you can't count on it to be put up 34 again. They only put up 3 in the second half, but that defense steps up and holds the Jets to just 3 instead of allowing that comeback, which a bad defense might do. This Browns defense able to step up, and I always say defense wins championships. These Browns are red hot going into the playoffs, and they can match up against anybody. We've seen them beat the Ravens. There's no team, I don't think, that they match up poorly against. I really think they'll be in every game. And I mean, there's a chance this Browns team, we've seen it before from Joe Flacco. If he can, cut down on the turnovers and play smart, ball control football, game manager type, why can't the Browns go to the Super Bowl, I mean, good a shot as anybody, I think.
I mean, 309 yards, 3 touchdowns. Their defense is grabbing pick sixes,
Mm-hmm.
They're a great team right now, and they're really fun to watch. I'm rooting for them. I know that the Ravens are your AFC team, but the Browns are just I love the concept that potentially the Browns and the Lions could potentially face off in the Super Bowl. Like, that's insane. Just like,
And
what
yeah,
kind of alternate universe is this?
well, and I'm, so much more confident in the Browns because of that defense, because I've seen it before from Flacco, right? He's been a Super Bowl MVP, and David Njoku in this game, he has 113 receiving yards in the first quarter,
Hmm.
finishes with 134. But whether it's Njoku, Amari Cooper the week before breaking the franchise record, the Browns just seem to get it done regardless of who's in the game. And they're coming in hot. 4-game winning streak, 11-5. Flacco throwing for 300 plus in 4 straight. There's not any much negative we can say about this Browns team going into the playoffs.
No, I like what they're doing, and I think it's a great situation for them. And then look at the other side of the ball. I mean, the Jets had the opportunity to re-sign Joe Flacco. He spent 3 seasons with the Jets. Aaron
Yep.
Rodgers tore his, Achilles in week 1, and they just left him at home on the couch and rolled with Zach Wilson. So it was super validating, I'm sure, for Flacco to beat the pants off of them by, basically only scoring in the first quarter of a game. And then for Flacco, this journey, I mean, he played for the Ravens. He won a Super Bowl there. He nominated or dominated that division for so long. Browns fans hated Flacco.
Mm-hmm.
He was a thorn in their side for years, but to go there and become someone that they were cheering for him, they were chanting for him on the sidelines, like, it was electric. I mean, this is only the Browns' second playoff appearance since 2000, if I'm correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, to have the fans so on board with you that they have completely forgiven you for, playing against the division rival, like, what an amazing story that would be.
Well, this is a team that's been starved for a franchise quarterback since, damn near Bernie Kosar. And so, Deshaun Watson was supposed to be the savior and he gets hurt. If it turns out to be Joe Flacco, they'll gladly welcome him with open arms and, hey, win us a couple playoffs games, get us to an AFC championship game. But, if it's Browns Ravens in the playoffs, imagine that atmosphere. Um, it'll be nuts. The storylines are going to be crazy come playoff time. And then for New York, they mutually agreed to release Dalvin Cook, who's
Mhm.
had a career low season. Didn't seem to be a good fit. I think once Aaron Rodgers went down, it just didn't make sense for Dalvin Cook to be there. Now he's a free agent looking to go to a contender. Where do you think might be the best fit for Dalvin Cook? Could he go to the Ravens, who've lost J.K. Dobbins and Keaton Mitchell? Could he go to these Browns, who lost Nick Chubb? I mean, they got Kareem Hunt, Jerome Ford. Where do you think would be the best fit for Dalvin Cook?
I mean, I think the Jags could use all the help they could get on offense right
Yeah,
now.
they could use a spark.
They
What
they
about
really
what
could.
about the Eagles?
I mean, I know we have seen great things out of the Eagles this season, but I don't know if a running back is what they need. I think they need a lot more than that.
A defensive
I mean,
coordinator?
I think a lot of teams need a new DC at this point. Like, we'll put them in with Joe Barry. We can duke it out for who needs one more. But I mean, their O line has been failing. Their receivers have had some key drops that have been bad. I mean, yeah, he could potentially help them, but I don't know if it's gonna be, a difference maker for that team right now.
I agree with you. The Jags makes a lot of sense. The one team, anyone but Kansas City, Delvin, no Chiefs.
I mean,
And he could be a good fit there too,
I
honestly.
think I think he would be a good fit there.
Yeah.
But, so we've covered, the unlikely Browns appearance in the postseason. Let's move on to the other one. I mean, Detroit clinched postseason appearance now. They, showed up and beat the Cowboys 1 point game or lost to the Cowboys in a 1 point game. Um, and you and I were back and forth about who we were picking in this one, and I stuck with Dallas, even though I kind of wanted Detroit to win here. But what do you think losing this game means to Detroit right now?
It's big because they had an opportunity to get the 2 seed. And instead, they're going to be the 3 seed. And when you think about it, in the grand scheme of things, they won the division, which is a huge accomplishment. They're going to host a playoff game, another huge accomplishment. But you want all the positive momentum you can going into the playoffs. And this is a game where I think anyone that watched this would say the Lions outplayed the Cowboys. The Lions should have won this game, and especially when you see that 2 point conversion get caught by the O lineman, you think the Lions should have won this game. And a lot of people are going to say, well, they got robbed. But in my opinion, again, we've talked about this all season long. It comes down to head coach Dan Campbell, and I just feel like he's too aggressive. And whether it's a turnover on downs earlier in the game on 4th and goal,
Yeah,
and
fourth and
then,
4
yeah, a
on the
long
4 yard
fourth down.
line. On the
Yeah,
4 yard line. That is insane to me.
yeah, and I don't understand that. And then, okay, I'm all right with the first decision. I think the first decision is too aggressive. I would have just kicked the extra point, gone to overtime.
Hmm.
But the first one I can understand because you're Dan Campbell and you're aggressive. But once you get the penalty, kick the extra point. I don't understand going for it from the 7 and then the 4 after offsides. Kick the extra point. Like, what are you doing at that point besides being emotional and stubborn and hard headed, right?
Yeah, I mean, you and I have messaged back and forth during this game, and I joked about him having roid rage, but who goes for it goes for two, 3 times in a row? Like, you got it the
Yeah.
first time, great. You got it the second time, there was a penalty. Like, the first time sucked. I can understand being pissed off about that. Like, the goal was to confuse your opponent. You confuse the refs. There was some weird rule about reporting, like the refs messed up there. That's fine. That sucks. Let's move on. Let's,
Hmm.
ensure we have a chance to win this. Nope, we're going to try to sacrifice it again. Okay, offsides. And then, I mean, it's insane to go for it 3 times in a row.
Yeah. I know, and you're asking for trouble, and he's so aggressive. If you remember earlier in this game, they did a fake punt from like their
Hmm.
own 35, and it worked. But imagine if it doesn't. Like, you're constantly putting yourself in bad spots because you're so aggressive. And when you're aggressive 4, 5, 6 times throughout a game, you have to imagine that 2 or 3 of those aren't going to work, right?
Well, yeah, and that, it was in the second quarter, that 4th and 4 turnover on downs.
Turnover. Yeah.
I mean, if they had that, a touchdown would have won the game here. It wouldn't have mattered. Extra point, 2 point conversion. Like, you left 3 points on the field and then you
Yep.
lost by one.
Yep.
And we've seen them do that multiple times.
Yeah.
And
And
it frustrates me because this is a team who is working their butts off, and then the play calls are screwing them out of wins. And granted,
mhm.
they have what, 11 wins at this point. So, like, obviously it's working for the most part. But in these close games, I mean, the Cowboys kind of played down to them. They were pretty evenly matched in this. They, had
It-
some great running on both sides of the ball. I mean, Tony Pollard was great, Gibbs was great, obviously, Montgomery, like, but take advantage of the points when they're right in front of you.
yeah, I mean, I just think that to me, what I always look for in a head coach is someone that is not emotional, doesn't go high and low, right? He's just even keel, and he's going to make the best decision in that situation to give you a chance to either extend the game or win the game. And in that situation, I'm kicking the extra point every time,
Mhm.
you know. And like you said, if you kick the field goal earlier, then you win the game on that touchdown. If you remember, CeeDee Lamb is in position for the Cowboys to go up 2 scores and fumbles into the end zone for a touchback. So, you know, a lot of different things can happen throughout a game. And the number one thing is to take advantage. I mean, that's a mistake by the Cowboys. You have to capitalize on it. And for whatever reason, you know, it hurt them in the end, and they weren't able to get the win. Big win for the Cowboys, though, as the Eagles lose to the Cardinals of all teams. And so with this win right here, the Cowboys jump back up to the number 2 seed and are gonna likely host a playoff game if they take care of business in Week 18, and that's huge for Dallas. We know how much better they are at home, right?
Well, and I mean, had they lost this one, which they were very close to doing, that would have
Mm-hmm.
been a 3-game losing streak for them. And the Cowboys have never appeared in a Super Bowl in a season, any season where they've had a 3-game losing streak. So,
Yeah,
you know, third time's the charm for them. If they lost 3 in a row, it doesn't bode well historically for that team. And I mean, Mike McCarthy really likes to go on his rants about complimentary football. The defense came up with stops in the fourth quarter. They were kind of just responding to what Detroit was doing in this game, but
mm-hmm.
it was interesting because it felt like the entire game that Detroit should pull this one off. And you know, Dallas would come back and kind of match what they were doing, but I don't it was a weird matchup. I'm obviously glad we got the pick correctly here, but I had some questions across the board. I mean, Brandon Cooks had a great game, obviously. But then, you know, looking at how that defense handled him for Detroit, you can't be letting Brandon Cooks with those big plays and CD with big plays like that and expect to go far in the postseason if you're letting that run past you.
Yeah, and that's the question with the Lions is their defense and then turnovers, and you know whether that's
Also, third down
yeah,
efficiency, they were 4 for 13 on third downs.
yeah, and
That's not postseason
and
worthy.
then you put turnovers on downs and mistakes like that on top of it. You're just asking for trouble. The Lions are not going in as the hottest team in football. They're 3-3 in their last 6 games, so they're playing 500 football going into the playoffs. So they're going to host a playoff game. It's going to be in Detroit. The city's going to be going crazy. That stadium's going to be loud as hell. Can they get it done? Can they make the right situational coaching decisions? Can Jared Goff protect the football? And can their defense keep it at least close, give their offense a chance? The matchup for that playoff game is going to be huge, whether that's the Packers or the Rams. And either way, you're looking at a tough matchup. Either Stafford coming in to play Detroit or Green Bay, who kind of kicked your ass on Thanksgiving. So it's going to be interesting for sure.
Yeah, it'll definitely show us the, you know, kind of view into whether or not we're right to hate on them or if they have kind of addressed some of these issues that they've been having the past couple weeks and they're, you know, willing to take it seriously and fix some of those problems.
Yeah, and most importantly, whether I hate Goff or not, because that's where it ultimately all comes from, is I don't
Hmm.
trust Jared Goff. But if he
Yeah.
delivers the Lions a playoff win, their first one since 1991, Lions fans aren't going to give a shit what I think. They're going to
Yeah.
be in love with Jared Goff. So it's up to Goff to prove, to get it done. Fuck what I
Yeah.
say. Go get the win, Jared Goff.
And I mean, you were a Lions hater, so you've kind of been picking against them, which has come to your detriment most of this season. And it's not like I'm a Lions fan, but they just felt different this season, and I've been pretty right about them so far. So I'll be intrigued to see how my picks this week and the postseason play out. So you guys check in on me on those and hold me accountable if I get those wrong for
They're going to
sure.
call you a hater because you're going to pick against the Lions in the playoffs, I have a feeling.
We'll see. You guys will have to tune in next week for that one.
Yeah.
But let's talk about my Bills, who I love. You know, they faced the 4-11 Patriots, and after the Patriots had a weird week last week and pulled off an unnecessary win, the Bills come in So their home stadium, they have a really good game overall. I mean, a 27-21 win over the Pats. But we've seen a lot of offensive issues for the Bills. They're inconsistent. They'll have a great game, great receivers, and then they'll have a game full of drops. I mean, Josh Allen had one of his worst passing performances of the season this week. His connection
Hmm.
was off with his receivers. They only had one drive of more than 9 plays. Only once did they have a drive of longer than 50 yards. I mean, how are you feeling about this one? I mean, next week they have to put together an offense that can compete with Miami's offense. Do you think the Bills just had an off week? What are your feelings?
I am still, it's a divisional game. It's late in the season. My big thing is find a way to win. They're not always going to be pretty. And putting together, now they're on a 4-game winning streak. I know it wasn't perfect, it didn't look that great, but the 4-game winning streak is huge, and they're in position. All they can ask for, I mean, you look back, they were 5-5. Like, a lot of people didn't think this Bills team was even going to make the playoffs. And now going into week 18, they have a chance to not only make the playoffs, but win the division. So they're, they haven't played their best football, but they're exactly where they need to be. Your boy Rasul Douglas with a big pick six in this game. I mean, you take away 7 points or 6 points either way, and it's tied or they lose by one. So the defense also stepping up is huge for Buffalo. And the big thing that jumps off the screen to me is they need to get James Cook going. After dominating for like a 3-game stretch, he's kind of fallen off the last couple of weeks. Come playoff time, come next week, you need to get James Cook back as a big, intricate part of this offense.
Yeah, and I mean, I have loved the Rasul Douglas pickup by the Bills. I was super upset that the Packers let him go. But I mean, that has been quite a move for them. He has been a playmaker since the second he showed up in Buffalo. But that red zone offense is an issue. I mean, the Patriots gave up 4 turnovers in the first half of this game. The Bills
Hmm.
settled for 2 field goals inside the 20-yard line in the first quarter. I mean, they let New England hang around. This game should have been a blowout. You commit 4 turnovers and you're still kind of neck and neck. You only lose a game by 6 points. The other team's offense is doing something wrong.
Yeah, I agree. But at the same time, count your blessings on those field goals, because how many times do we look around the league and see those turning into turnovers on downs and coming away with 0 points?
Yeah, that's
So,
true.
you know, take the 3 points. I mean, I don't know. It's not their best football, but I mean, going into week 18 at Miami, I'm riding with the Bills. Like I'm
Mhm.
feeling it. They're on a winning streak, and Miami's going through some issues of their own. So it's going to be a great game. It's a playoff game pretty much. It's going to be an electric atmosphere in Miami. That's the game. Maybe they look past New England
I
a little
was
bit.
I was just gonna ask if I
Yeah.
mean you're good at sensing that when a team is just kind of like, oh, we'll sort this one out, but let's focus on the one after it. You're
Yeah.
pretty good at kind of sensing out when a team is looking ahead and looking past a game. I kind of get the sense that this might have been one of those games. I mean, Bailey Zappi, we're not worried about him. We'll just squeak out a win and focus on Miami.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see what the Patriots do going forward. Is this it for Bill Belichick? And do they trade up, try to get Caleb Williams? Do they draft Drake May? They're obviously going to be looking to upgrade the quarterback position, right? I mean, Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi are not it.
No. And it'll be interesting to see how some of these quarterbacks, move around the league in the offseason because there's quite a few who might be available or interested in moving around. So
Yeah.
definitely some big offseason news to keep an eye out for.
Yeah, I mean the NFL is a year-long league. Like even in the off season, it's crazy. So it's gonna be fun to follow along. How about my Chicago Bears at home against the Falcons? A must-win for Atlanta in the snow. And let me start this off by saying I love Bears football in the snow.
Hmm.
And these people that want to move the Bears to a dome stadium need to get the hell off my lawn. Like I'm so tired of that talk. Sure, I want a new stadium too, but let's leave it outside so we can enjoy some Bears football in the snow. There's nothing like it.
Well, I think had you seen the forecast before we made our picks on the podcast, you might have picked the Bears here. Because I know you had picked the Falcons. Right now, you've said to me that your goal is, get rid of the coaching staff. So losing out is technically better for the Bears based on their draft pick and, getting rid of some coaches, but it was a great game for the Bears. I know it would technically be better for them to lose, but I mean, Justin Fields had such a good game. Him and
Hmm.
DJ Moore together and Khalil Herbert, I mean, the combination of them is so fun to watch. Like this was this was almost a blowout. Like I I just I'm really, really liking Justin Fields in Chicago, and I hope that he finally gets the credit he is due after some of these late season performances. Because it's absolutely not fair that cities who refuse to build around quarterbacks blame the quarterbacks for everything that goes wrong with their team.
Yeah.
And Justin Fields is such a talented kid. And he, you give him a couple good receivers. We've seen what he can do this season. He absolutely deserves to be the starting quarterback of that team.
Yeah, and I'm all on board. I want to keep Justin Fields. I'm rooting for him. Um, and I want to draft Marvin Harrison Jr. really badly. I want to add Marvin Harrison Jr. opposite DJ Moore. And I mean, if you like Justin Fields DJ Moore connection, imagine Marvin Harrison on the other side. That right there on paper looks really difficult to defend, doesn't it?
It does, and I'm sure it would look even better live and in color, but I mean,
Hmm.
we'll have to see what they do because Chicago's management has not always made the best choices for that team. I mean, think of some of their offseason moves last year. You
Yeah,
still those still bug you every week.
yeah, yeah. And the bad thing about winning out, we're on a 2 game winning streak of won 4 of our last 5 is that it's trending towards keeping Matt Eberflus, and I hate that. Jim Harbaugh's on a silver platter, ready to go to the NFL, and we're gonna stick with Eberflus of all people. But if we have to keep Eberflus in order to keep Justin Fields, I guess. Like I love Fields. He's one of the biggest reasons I'm still a Bears fan, and it felt great to hear the Bears fans chanting "We want Fields" at the end of this game.
Hmm.
We know how fickle Bears fans can be, and Fields has proven them wrong. But I tell you what, finish the season strong. The quickest way to make Bears fans do a complete 180 is to play a bad game against the Packers in Week 18. Finish the season strong. Play your best game of the season against Green Bay. Maybe keep the Packers out of the playoffs. Then you for sure will keep your job. But Chicago, especially Bears fans and even Bears management, will overreact to what happens against the Packers.
Hmm. Let me just say, after all those nice things I said about Fields, this weekend they do not apply. I will recant all of those statements and Fields can have 5 yards on offense, and I will laugh at him. But
Well,
let's look at the other side of the ball. So the Bears are out of the playoffs. But the Falcons are technically still in the NFC South race. They have been super inconsistent. I mean, they occasionally have an amazing performance. I mean, they're playing the Saints in week 18. Earlier this season, they held the Saints without a touchdown, had almost 400 yards of offense. I mean, do we think this team can do that again?
I mean, they can. The Saints aren't exactly the most, we've complained about the Saints all year too.
Hmm.
Both of these teams are so up and down week to week, and even the Bucks. We thought we knew who Tampa Bay was, and then they play like shit on Sunday. So the NFC South continues to make zero sense, and it's going to come down to Week 18, like we anticipated all season long. Falcons at Saints is a toss up. I think the Saints win that, but Atlanta's very capable of winning that. And then the Falcons not only need to win in New Orleans, but they need the Bucks to lose at Carolina in order to get into the playoffs. It's not looking good. Like this was a big opportunity to get a win here against Chicago, and they lose by 20. And Taylor Henneke throws 3 interceptions. So even if they beat the Saints, they might not make the playoffs. I'm still trending with Tampa Bay here in a get right game against Carolina.
Yeah, I'm gonna roll with Tampa Bay here, but man, it's just nobody in this division wants to go to the postseason. Like we've got
Yeah.
two teams at 500 and a 7-9 team. Like
I
Ew.
mean, at
Like,
Panthers, that's a nice way to end the season. That should be an easy win, right?
yeah, it should be a good break for them, but right now, I mean, they're really into spoiling people's seasons. So we'll see. I mean, it just it irks me that there are divisions that can squeak into the playoffs at barely 500, and then, we've got multiple teams in the NFC East who have 11 wins. It always cracks me up. Like, if you're in the right division, you don't have to do much.
I love it though. Like I'm on the minority here, but I love it. It puts
Oh, I
that
think
all
it's
the
entertaining.
yeah, it puts the emphasis on it doesn't matter when your division, right? And I think that's the way it should be, but it sucks when it's like 7-9, 8-8.
What was that year that it was the Cardinals missed the playoffs with a 10-win season because Seattle and the 49ers both had, yeah, I think they missed the wild card and they had 10 wins.
Yeah, and it's like remember when the Seahawks got in at like 7-9, and
Yep.
then Marshawn Lynch did that Beastquake run.
Yep.
So
It's
anything's
crazy. I love the
possible.
NFL. It's a complete shit show. Um,
Yeah.
so we just touched on teams who are very hot and cold, who we cannot figure out if they're going to win one week to the next. Let's talk about Raiders at Colts. I mean, a 7-8 team at an 8-7 team. For my pick on this one, I put Raiders question mark because you don't know which version of the Raiders or which version of the Colts are showing up. And I had a feeling it was going to be a close game, a very much a toss-up game. It was, the Colts pulled off a 23-20 win. But I mean, do these Colts have enough of an offense to compete in the postseason? I mean, they've been inconsistent, but every now and then they look like they might be able to put something together.
I don't trust them. If Anthony, the second Anthony Richardson went down for the season, I said, they're not going to do anything. They've gone further than I expected. They're above 500. They're in position, with the Texans and Jags to even win the division, which is better than I thought. But no, I don't want to see this Colts team in the playoffs. I don't want to see Gardner Minshew start a playoff game. Like that doesn't excite me. And they're probably going to get blown out. Um,
Well,
yeah,
this winning this game put them at a 63% chance of making the postseason.
yeah, and it's all going to come down to Saturday night versus the Texans. Texans at Colts. It's a playoff game, and regardless of what happens with the Jags, the winner of that Colts Texans game likely gets a 7 seed.
Hmm.
So I can't wait for this game. And give me C.J. Stroud and the Texans. Like I don't trust the Colts. Bottom line.
Yeah, me neither. I mean, their running backs had a great week. I mean, Jonathan Taylor was in and out of the game with an injury, but I mean, he's still 96 yards and 21 carries. Zach Moss was there
Mhm.
doing his thing. So we've seen them be productive. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But again, this AFC South, these South divisions really like their mediocrity ties, but we've got a three-way tie at 9-7. So that's
Yeah.
definitely going to be a fun storyline to keep an eye on next week.
Yeah, I
This
can't wait to
weekend, not
see
next week.
how that plays out. The Raiders are officially eliminated from playoff contention, but Devontae Adams gives his ringing endorsement of interim head coach Antonio Pierce, says he, is exemplifies the Raider way and the Raiders football. And so I hope that Mark Davis makes the right decision and extends Antonio Pierce, gives him the full-time job this offseason. It would make for a great story. And if the Raiders can upgrade the quarterback position, they might have something going forward next year.
Well, what's concerning to me is so Pierce took over, 4-4 as the interim coach, but I mean this loss was not a great one, and then the 3-0 loss to the Vikings. That does not look
Mm-hmm.
good on anyone's record.
Well,
Um,
get Aiden O'Connell out of there. Get an upgrade.
yeah. What concerns me though, I mean, so this involves both of us actually. So Jim Harbaugh, Michigan's coach, going to the Natty. Um, I love him at Michigan. I don't want him to leave. But you and a lot of people think he's making a switch to the NFL this year. Um, I have seen a lot of conversation about him going to the Raiders, and I know
Mm-hmm.
you very much would want him in Chicago. Do you think the Raiders would be a better fit for him, or do you think Chicago would be the front runner?
I think best fit is Chicago. but I think Harbaugh's going to the NFL, and I think that he's going to go where the money goes. And the Bears, I honestly at this point I believe the Bears are too stupid and too cheap to go get Jim Harbaugh. And if the Raiders offer him what he wants money wise, he'll go there. And there's a couple other teams that he could go to that will, if they offer him the right money, he'll go. And I think we will see him in the NFL next year, and it might not be with the Bears.
I just like, the Harbaugh Bowl concept. I like him in the NFC better than the AFC.
Yeah, I mean, but the Raiders are willing to spend money. We've seen them give John Gruden that 10-year, $100 million deal. Uh, if they don't want to go with Antonio Pierce and want to make a splash higher, Jim Harbaugh is the biggest name available this offseason. So someone's going to offer it to him, I'm pretty sure. And it just really frustrates me that the Bears are too stupid to go get the obvious candidate, but you know what they say.
Yeah, well, I'll be intrigued to see how the Raiders game against the Broncos goes this weekend, because I feel like that'll have some say in whether or not Antonio Pierce gets anything. Because I mean, the Broncos obviously are a hot mess right now. Russell Wilson is benched for Jarrett Stidham for the rest of the season. They've been eliminated. So this game is basically just a showcase game for Antonio Pierce. And for those players who want him to stick around, I mean, get out there and blow Denver out.
Yeah.
I think that would be a great way to kind of put some more signatures on that petition that they've started.
Yeah, absolutely. Neither team's going to the playoffs, so make a statement out of it.
Yep, exactly.
Um, the Rams come in red hot into New York against the Giants, and they, almost lost this game. They hang on to win 26-25, but your boy Mason Crosby had a 54-yard field goal that could have sunk the Rams here, but he missed it. So that doesn't help, does it?
I mean, I was kind of rooting for him to miss it. I picked the Rams to win here. Um, so, I mean, the Rams winning wasn't good for the Packers, obviously, but I don't know. I think Mason Crosby was not a part of Green Bay anymore for a reason. And I think this game kind of highlighted that. But I mean, the Rams didn't really have the best kicker situation either. I mean, I'm gonna slaughter his name. But Lucas Hasrizik
Haver,
missed two extra points.
yeah,
I don't, how do you say his name?
Haversick, I think.
Okay. Yeah, so you guys will give me shit for this forever. I prefer to follow the play-by-plays in games. So a lot of time I don't hear announcers say people's names. Like I'll have the game on, but I'll be reading the play-by-play. I can't stand some of these talking heads on the games. They make me crazy. Just give me the information. I will watch it, but it'll be muted. So if I say names wrong, you can, call me out in the comments. That's fine.
Mhm.
Um, but I mean, let's talk about the offense for these Rams. So Puka Nacua is having an insane season. You loved him in the draft. I was kind of on the fence about him, but I mean, him and Kyron Williams on this offense, I was surprised that this game was so close.
Me too. It's not a good sign for the Rams going forward. The fact that they allowed the Giants to almost win this game, and this was a must win for the Rams. They lose this, and they're probably missing the playoffs. This was not a good showing for them. And they made a lot of mistakes that kept the Giants in this game. Stafford throwing 2 interceptions.
Hmm.
Um, and they're lucky to get the win. They win their third straight. They clinch a playoff spot, so that's the good news. But so that they don't play their best football here, and now we're learning that they're going to bench literally damn near everybody at the Niners next week. No Stafford, no Kyron Williams, no Cooper Kupp. So
They're trying to keep everybody healthy for the postseason, but I mean,
yeah,
don't let
but
people get rusty. Like,
yeah,
I mean, this was a game where Kyron Williams had 3 rushing touchdowns, career high for him. Nakua had 5 catches for 118 yards. That's an amazing game stat. Um,
hmm
Seventh game this season with at least 100 receiving yards, tied for the second most by any rookie in NFL history. Why are you not continuing the momentum of this offense. Obviously, your defense, I mean, that secondary was abysmal. I mean, they
Hmm.
let the Giants have some of the most explosive plays they've had all season, which is not a good look. But I mean, don't maybe bench them the fourth quarter or the second half, but not even playing just seems so far in the wrong direction to me.
Yeah, it seems risky. And so, you don't play your best football in week 17. You bench your starters in week 18. And on top of that, they're still figuring out the kicker situation as they cut Lucas Haversick, so you don't have to say his name anymore. And they
Perfect.
bring back they bring back Brett Maher, who's 17 of 23 this season, and they released him after missing 3 kicks and a loss to the Steelers. So they don't have any confidence in that kicker position, and that could be a big factor come playoff time.
It's funny to me that they let their kickers have like a bad game and then immediately cut them. And then some teams will keep their shitty kickers for an entire season.
Hmm. Well, and then to bring him back makes no sense. I mean,
Yeah.
if I were the Rams, I would go get Cody Parkey for the playoffs. That's what I'd do.
Well, what's funny in this situation is like the Rams need a kicker, and the Giants just swooped up Mason Crosby, but he couldn't pull off the win for them. So like they're just equally just, hurting at the kicker position. But it was a kind of funny matchup that it happened to be these two teams.
Man, if you're the Rams, I would be calling up Robbie Gold and saying, "Hey, how about unretiring real quick?"
God, you're so into the Robbie Gold unretirement story.
I mean, never missed a playoff kick. How do you not sell that, right?
I mean, yeah, but like how many playoff kicks did he need to make
A
for the
lot.
Bears? For the Bears, really?
Yeah, I think he's like 20 for 20 in his. I mean, he had a long ass career. Some
I
big kicks
know.
with the
I know.
Niners. You
I'm just
you
talking
remember
shit.
those Niners
I
kicks,
know he was
don't
there for the Niners. Trust me, I know that. I was just talking shit
you?
about his stint with the Bears. Okay, but speaking of eliminated teams, let's talk about the 3-12 Cardinals beating up on the 11-4 Eagles. I mean, the Cardinals had literally nothing to gain by winning this game, other than making the Eagles look bad. And I mean, they really did. And it's interesting because you see the Cardinals record, like, oh, they're a 3-win team, but like they were not a Kyler Murray team for most of the season. And he's
Hmm.
back now and he's, trying to connect with his receiving core and get into the swing of things. And they really seem like they've kind of found their rhythm on offense. Obviously, it's garbage time for them this season, but I'll be intrigued to see how this Cardinals team looks next year.
Absolutely. Build around Kyler Murray. Maybe draft a quarterback to compete with him. Build the roster. But the big story here is Philly, and this is inexcusable type of loss. I mean, you know that you need to win out, and if you do, you've got the 2 seed in the entire NFC. You've got a home playoff game. The one thing you can't do is allow the Cowboys to come up and steal that division from you, and to lose to the 3-12 Cardinals and just blow a lead. They were up 21-6 at halftime, and now you've lost 4 out of 5. Julio Jones, you're throwing to in the end zone. I mean, he should be option number 4 or 5. Like, I don't know what the Eagles are doing here. They got kind of pushed around, and ever since making that move at defensive coordinator, honestly, they look worse.
Hmm. It
So,
it was one of those things that seemed desperate when they did it. Uh,
hmm.
like they were just, we don't look good right now. Let's just do something to, make it look like we've fixed it. And I don't think it's done anything. And I mean, this is, a Super Bowl caliber team last year, and you expect, I mean, there wasn't a ton of roster changes, so you expect the team to kind of continue on that run. I mean, people were talking about dynasties and stuff last year with those two Super Bowl teams. And this is a very different looking Eagles team.
Yeah, I mean, something's obviously wrong here, and I do think that the defensive coordinator move, even at the time, we're like, this seems kind of like over the top, like maybe a
It was
little
very
panicky.
abrupt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's a move that Nick Sirianni, who I've never really been a huge fan of, might regret. And a lot of people are going to talk about they're missing, because head coach Jonathan Gannon beats his old team. He was the defensive coordinator there last year, They lost Shane Steichen to the Colts, but I don't know. Something's obviously wrong here. It's hard to exactly pinpoint it, other than the defense doesn't look any good. And we talked about the defense all off season and all season long being loaded with talent. You know, all those Georgia Bulldogs on that defense, and Fletcher Cox, and they trade for Kevin Byard. They're going to get Darius Slay back, but is that enough? And I don't know. I think the Eagles can still do enough in the playoffs. They're still going to be a tough team to beat in the playoffs, that they can get to the NFC Championship game. But as of right now, it's how can you pick the Eagles to go back to the Super Bowl? I don't think you can.
Yeah, I mean, compare them to how the other, NFC front runner has looked the past couple of weeks. I mean, I'm taking San Francisco or Dallas over the Eagles right now.
Yeah, and it might come down to a playoff game, Eagles at Cowboys, and how much fun would that be, you know?
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
It would probably be violent in the stands though. Those fans get a little too scrappy.
Yeah.
But quick shout out to Julio Jones. It was his first time catching two touchdown passes in a game since week six of 2020.
Yeah.
He's the oldest Eagles player with two receiving touchdowns in a game since 1997.
Yeah.
So I mean,
I love it for them, yeah.
this
But
this season we've seen both opposites. Like the old guys still got it, and these youngins can really figure it out quick. So it's definitely a contrast of some of these older players showing up and having great comeback seasons, and then some of these younger players having completely blown out numbers.
yeah, this is why we love the NFL, because just when you think you've got it figured out, you realize you don't know anything, right? It's like
Yeah.
it's such a week to week league.
Absolutely. So we've talked about this division already. Let's talk about the Saints at Bucks game. I mean, that was I mean, I picked the Bucks here, you picked the Bucks here. We thought that was going to be the team to pull ahead in the division, and I mean, this was not their week.
Yeah, well, this is the most, along with the Cardinals beating the Eagles, this was the one of the most surprising games of the weekend. Not just that the Bucks lose this, but that they're down 20-0 at
Mhm.
home on a 4 game winning streak, and we both assumed this was we just threw up a dub, said the Bucks are gonna finish the season red hot and go into the playoffs on like a 6 game winning streak, and be a problem for whoever they play. To lose this is glaring. And I'll give the Saints credit. They played one of their best games of the season. No turnovers for Derek Carr. Derek Carr played a great game. Um, spreading the ball around. The defense played well for the first time in a while. But I mean, a bad performance by the Bucks, and it came out of nowhere. We thought we knew who this Bucks team was. We thought they were the one team in that division you could trust, and now we're not so sure, right?
Yeah, and I mean, the Saints had their best game of the season, so it's not like they were
Mm-hmm.
playing against a team who wasn't trying. So the Saints definitely were in this. They were fighting to win. Um, and that I don't know what happened with the Bucks, honestly. Baker looks off. It looked like there was some miscommunications going on there. And I mean, winning this game would have locked up the division for the Bucks.
Yeah,
So now it's a three team conversation, and I really thought the division would be decided after this game.
yeah. And the good news is, chalk it up to a bad loss. It's a divisional game, two teams that hate each other. Even when Tom Brady was in Tampa, they had their struggles with the Saints. So chalk it up, say, hey, the Saints, we hate the Saints. Screw them. They stole one from us. Let's go win in Carolina against a bad 2-win Panther team, and the division's ours. That's all throw this tape in the trash and just prepare for Carolina. Play your best game of the year. Find a way to win that. And you don't have to worry about the Saints or the Falcons. Just go get that win.
Yeah, I mean, technically they have a 73% chance to win their division if they win next week. Um, but
Who?
I
Tampa?
yeah, the
They'll
number
win
says
the
seven.
division.
the number says they have a 73% chance to win their division if they win next week. So does that mean New Orleans has the tiebreaker then? Because I mean, or not?
No, the Saints need the Bucks to lose. The Falcons need the Bucks to lose. I think it's a 100% chance based on the calculations that I've done. If Tampa Bay wins, regardless of if the Saints win or the Falcons win, Tampa Bay wins the division.
Okay, because I mean,
I'll have to look and
the
double
numbers
check
I
that.
saw, it said 73% if they beat Carolina. So I assume that means that the Saints can be a thorn in their side because they're both 8-8. So I think if
It
the Saints
it could
win,
be because they did split. It's not like they swept them.
yeah. So it was a sweep. So technically, it's not a win and in situation. They also need the Saints to lose.
I don't know. I'm gonna
We'll look
do
more into
some.
that, guys.
Yeah,
But the number I saw says 73%, which made me kind of ponder that for a second. But we'll look into that more. We'll have more information when we make our picks for this weekend. You want to move on to those 49ers at Commanders?
yeah. I'm hold on. I'm pulling this up right now. Go ahead and start that one.
Sure. Okay. So, I mean, this game, we saw the 49ers clinch the NFC's number one seed. They beat the Commanders 27-10. You could definitely tell that the Niners kind of pulled off the gas a little bit in this one. They took it easy, didn't want to risk any injuries. But I mean, Sunday's win and then compare that with the Eagles' loss to the Cardinals. Number one seed is theirs, first round playoff bye. It is great. The Niners, they seem a little banged up right now. We've had some issues with O-line injuries. The defense has been pretty banged up, a lot of injuries and, some lackluster play the past couple weeks there. But they beat Washington. And now they get to kind of to rest a little bit. I mean, Christian McCaffrey definitely needs some rest. He's been getting beat up a little bit. And they've been using him as much as possible, and he's had an amazing season, but getting the opportunity for that first round bye is going to be great for him. Eric Armstead gets to rest the next couple of weeks. That'll help very much in their postseason run. And Elijah Mitchell, in this game, we have seen a lot of injuries, in his career. He's, been limited almost every season he's played. He was, only 10 games this season. But McCaffrey, with that calf injury, Mitchell had a great game. He finished with 81 yards on 16 carries with a touchdown, which is the most productive we've seen him in a while. So it's nice to know they've got some, next man up ready to go. If they still have McCaffrey fighting that calf injury in the postseason.
Yeah, Niners to me are the best team in the NFC. Damn near by far. Like I
Mhm.
think that they're going to be tough to beat, regardless. I think the team that matches up against them the best, maybe the Cowboys or the Eagles. But I find it hard to believe that if the 49ers, if they stay healthy, I believe they go to the Super Bowl and represent the NFC. I don't really see any team, unless the Niners just play one of their worst games of the year, beat them when they're fully healthy. And we've been saying that all season long with, Purdy, as long as he doesn't turn the ball over, Christian McCaffrey, Debo Samuel, George Kittle, Ayuk, that defense, they're the most talented, the most loaded, and in my opinion, the most well coached team. They're going to be a hard team to beat for anybody. It would not, they're on paper right now. They're my team to go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, and you and I have been talking for over a month now about a rematch of the Blackout Bowl, the Harbaugh Bowl,
Hmm.
49ers, Ravens. And it seems likely that that will happen. As much as I would love the, Cleveland Detroit storyline, it doesn't seem very likely. But yeah, the Niners have been the best team. One thing that I questioned this week after kind of seeing how it played out with that McCaffrey injury and stuff, they have been on the season the second ranked in red zone efficiency. This
Hmm.
game they finished 3 for 6. So they had a really tough week in the red zone. And let's chalk that up to kind of, pulling off the gas a little bit because they were playing the Commanders. But I'm intrigued to see if that'll be an issue in week 18 as well.
Yeah, I mean, and those type of games happen. The biggest thing is to get the win. Even when you don't play your best, and it it might have looked sloppy at times, but they still win by 17. And
Yeah,
That's what we wanted to see from the Eagles. Like, who cares if you play your best football against the Cardinals, but find a way to
just
win it.
win.
And the
Yeah.
fact that you lost to the 3-win Cardinals is just embarrassing.
Hmm.
And that's another reason why I trust the Niners more than anybody. And you know, I looked up the Bucks. It is if the Bucks win, they're in, or they win the division.
Hmm.
So I don't know what that 73% is. The Saints and the Falcons, regardless of if they win, need the Bucks to lose to Carolina. So they're both big Panther fans. So we'll see if Tampa Bay, if they can just get that win and win that division.
Yeah, absolutely. And another funny storyline in this one. So Sam Howell was benched on Wednesday, but then Jacoby Brissett had a hamstring
Yeah.
situation and he couldn't start. So then Howell had to play anyway. I mean, how embarrassing as management to bench your quarterback and then have to go back to him 2 days later and be like, well, but actually though, do you mind playing? Because homeboy can't. Like, God,
Yeah,
that's
and
so awkward.
the season's over. Like, put in your third stringer at that point. Like,
I mean,
it's a,
Sam Howell basically a third stringer though?
yeah, talent wise, and yeah, that's embarrassing. I did my prediction, my preview, and was like, yeah, Jacoby Brissett's getting the start, Sam Howell bench, and then I'm watching it, and I'm like, what the hell is Sam Howell doing back out here?
Yeah,
Uh,
hilarious.
I mean, Brissett, Howell, who cares? The Commanders are a bad team, and good on the Niners for getting the win. And then the big question with the Commanders is, do they draft a quarterback? What happens this offseason? Ron Rivera likely to be fired. Who will be the head coach? And what direction do they go at quarterback? Because, they've benched Sam Howell 3 times this year, so they need to figure that out. How about Panthers Jags? Trevor Lawrence out. I was surprised that you picked the Jags here. I was hoping that you would pick Carolina here so I could get a win on you. But you believed in the CJ Beathard Jags. I believed in the CJ Beathard Jags, and it's funny that Jacksonville comes in on a 4-game losing streak with their starting quarterback out, and we still both believed in the Jags with a backup against Carolina.
And then look at the final score on this one. I mean,
Yeah, ridiculous.
it's, I mean, we knew they had to end their losing streak at some point. Like they have, you know, a league high 10 turnovers over that streak, -5 in turnover differential, 24 penalties. Like they've been a mess. But in this game, there were no turnovers. They were only penalized once. And it's the worst team in the league. So if they're gonna break that streak, it should be this week. And I it wasn't so much that I had faith in CJ Beathard. Um,
Mhm.
their linebacker, Josh Allen, he only needed one sack in this game to tie Calais Campbell's single season franchise record of 14 and a half. He got 3 sacks. So he has 16 and a half. I just had a feeling like he was that close to the record. He's been having a really good season. And the Panthers are just a hot mess with literally nothing to gain by winning or losing. It just felt like the Jags would knock off their streak.
Yeah, and the little bit that I did see from this game makes the Panthers. The Panthers are terrible, and there's a lot of questions and concerns about Bryce Young right now. I mean, I saw a crucial 3rd and 4 with a dude wide open, and Bryce Young just dirted it. And looking, we've been talking about how great C.J. Stroud has looked all season. And I think Panther fans need to be a little bit worried and concerned right now that maybe we messed this up big time and drafted the wrong dude. We can't say for sure yet with Bryce Young. Sometimes it takes quarterbacks 2, 3 years to develop. So it's very important to get the right head coach in there, get a proven quarterback developer and a good system and talent around him to give him the best chance to develop into a franchise quarterback. But right now, he looks really bad. And I almost don't blame David Tepper for throwing a drink at Jacksonville fans at the end of this, but I kind of do at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, it's you have to know who you are and where the
Yeah.
cameras are and that you're going to be, you are held to a higher standard in that
He was just in
situation.
fan mode at that moment.
Yeah, he was not an owner or, any that's so embarrassing. Can you
Yeah.
imagine? Like,
Yeah. You're in
ah,
the Jags stadium in their box and you're throwing your drinks at fans. He
that's
got
insane to
fined
me.
$300,000 for it. And Tony Kornheiser on ESPN saying that he thinks David Tepper should be suspended for week 18. And I kind of agree with him. Like, who cares? You're 2-14. You need to send a statement to him. 300K is one thing. I would suspend him for a game. Why not, right?
Yeah, I mean, if Harbaugh got suspended for 3 games for someone on his staff going to a game and looking at the sidelines, this seems fair.
Yeah.
But I
Uh,
mean, your quarterback was sacked 6 times by the 27th ranked defense. Like, I would be pretty pissed off too, honestly.
Half of that was Josh Allen, though,
I
not the white
know.
Josh Allen, the black Josh Allen,
Oh my God,
and
let's just say the defensive Josh Allen. Okay, let's not bring race
but,
into it.
but he's a monster. I love
He's
this dude.
insane.
3 sacks in the game and breaks the franchise record with 16 and a half sacks. Uh, if the Jags are going to be a threat in the playoffs, he needs to be a wrecking ball on the defensive side.
Yeah, and something to keep an eye on here. So we know the Panthers are a hot mess. They do have some players that could have some solid trade value. Their linebacker Brian Burns, I mean,
Mhm.
he has been kind of heating up at the wrong time for them. Um, Obviously they didn't accomplish much this season, but he had his first sack. He had 4 weeks without. But I mean, he's been chasing people down for tackles. And this week he had 8 tackles on the day. He left in the first half with a knee injury too. And he's really trying for this team even though the team seems to have completely quit. So
Yeah.
I'm almost wondering if he's going to request a trade or if they've kind of like given him a heads up because it was weird to see a singular player put in that much effort for a 2-win team in week 17.
No, I think he's playing for his contract with a new team. I think that he had a contract dispute with Carolina earlier, like this
Mhm.
offseason before the season started, and they wouldn't give him one. So he, I think, knows he's going to be traded and is like, let me play as hard as I can to show what I'm capable of. He's a monster, too. I loved him coming out of Florida State. And hopefully he goes to a contender somewhere where he can actually show, his skill set and play some meaningful football, too.
Yeah. And it's unfair for these great players to be on teams that the management and the ownership don't seem to really know what they're doing and care about winning.
Yeah, 100%. But let's talk about what was supposed to be the game of the weekend.
Mhm.
Dolphins at Ravens. And a lot of hype going into this game. Can the Dolphins, they just beat the Cowboys, so they proved they could beat a good team. How will they match up against, the 1 seed is still on the line here. So if you beat the Ravens in Baltimore, maybe you end up with the 1 seed. Jalen Waddle doesn't play. Raheem Mostert doesn't play. But I tend to think that even if they did, the Ravens win this game by double digits. I mean, 56-19, a statement. And I know you've been, you would love to see Tyreek Hill or Christian McCaffrey or,
Listen, for me, it's not anything against Lamar.
yeah.
It's been a while since it's been a non-quarterback.
Well,
And
Lamar wrapped that up, though.
oh
He
yeah, he
wrapped
did.
it up on
Absolutely.
Sunday.
And
Five
if
touchdowns, no turnovers, a perfect passer rating.
mhm, Lamar deserves it after this game. I mean, you put up a perfect passer rating in week 17 against this vaunted 11 win offense. Like, no. He deserves it for sure. It just for most of the season, the focus has been on all the, starting quarterback injuries. And to be fair, Lamar has heated up at the right time. Like,
Yeah.
not that he was bad early in the season, but it very much felt like team wins until about week 14. And then he's kind of singled himself out a little bit with a lot of the Ravens' success in the past couple weeks. So he absolutely deserves it now. I just, it's been a hot second since he's been a non-quarterback, so I was kind of hoping for that. But at this point, after this game, he deserves it absolutely.
Yeah, it's not like no one had been running away with it, and so it made sense to be still in the conversation with McCaffrey and Tyreek Hill and guys like that. But Lamar runs away with it in this game, and he has, against the Niners he played great, and this one he played great, and the eye test really says it for me. A lot of people were talking about his numbers, and Brock Purdy's running away with all the stats, but
Mhm.
the eye test, Lamar is playing the best football in the NFL right now,
Yeah.
and he's going to be an absolute handful for anyone come playoff time. And then it's not just him in the offense; they got the number one or number two defense in the league as well, and they hold the Dolphins to just 19. And you see that Roquan Smith one-handed interception
Yeah.
on Sunday. We saw what Justin Hamilton was doing against the Niners. Like they got dogs all over that defense. So the Ravens, it makes sense right now. It's like the Ravens and Niners are destined to meet each other in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and I mean that's going to be fun to watch. If that does happen, I mean we've seen that matchup before, and they were very different teams. But
Mm-hmm.
it's been interesting watching these Ravens because we know they're absolutely stacked on offense, especially in the receiver position. Like you and I have, been talking about their receivers all season. Um, Justice Hill in this game,
Yeah.
running back, they have not been a running heavy team all season because they haven't needed to be. I mean, Lamar Jackson will run the ball if you need to run the ball. But in
Yeah.
this matchup, Justice Hill caught Lamar's first touchdown pass to a running back since week 8 of last season.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean that 78-yard kickoff return to open the second half of the game. I mean, he had a great game, and it's interesting to see some of these players breaking out right before the postseason. So that's someone I would definitely keep an eye on them for their postseason run here. And then let's talk about the Dolphins. I mean, this matchup, you would expect them to really fully show up in this game. I know they were missing some people on offense, but where was their defense? I know they
Mm-hmm.
haven't had a great defense all season, but that secondary was garbage.
Yeah, they got absolutely picked apart. Dolphins fans were excited going into this game. They thought that this is a potential AFC Championship game matchup, a battle for the one seed, a huge game in their season. And after the way they found a way to beat the Cowboys, people had high expectations coming into this one. And to get their doors beaten off by the Ravens in a statement loss, and just to add insult to injury or injury to insult, Bradley Chubb, the team's leading sack guy, torn ACL out for the season. So they've already lost Jalen Phillips. Now they lose Bradley Chubb, and you've got Jalen Waddle and Raheem Mostert dealing with injuries. Not good right now for the Dolphins, and the worst time of the year with the Bills coming into town to potentially steal the division. If the Dolphins lose the division and limp into the playoffs on a two-game losing streak, how bad of an ending to the season could it be for Miami? I mean, a lot riding on this Bills game on Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely. But one bright spot for them, Devon Achan in this game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is if this isn't a preview of him as running back number one next season, I mean, he had 137 total yards, a touchdown, um, and you and I were pretty bummed when he went on IR this season. But man, if that kid has not made an amazing comeback since he's been back.
Yeah, absolutely. And his speed fits that offense really well. With Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Devon Achane, Raheem Mostert. I mean, they're so fast all across the board. But the Ravens hit him in the mouth, and the Dolphins didn't really recover. And we'll see, what how the Bills will do in Miami. Big ass game, but a lot riding on the line here. If the Dolphins win in Week 18, they'll get the 2 seed and have a home playoff game against the 7 seed. So a great spot to be in. If they lose, they fall to the 6 seed and might have to go to Arrowhead, right? So, which would you rather have? Do you want to go into Kansas City and take on Mahomes in the wild card round, or would you rather have the 2 seed and you know play the 7 seed? So it's going to be very interesting here.
Yeah, I mean, not that the Chiefs have really been that big of a concern this season for
Yeah,
them,
but
but it's one of those teams
playoff.
that I don't trust to lose in the postseason.
Yeah, and the Chiefs did beat the Dolphins in the regular season in
Yeah,
Germany, and no, regardless of how the Chiefs are playing right now, no one wants to go into Arrowhead in the
no.
playoffs.
Yeah.
So
That's a tough stadium.
yeah.
So let's move on. Let's talk the 5-10 Titans at the 8-7 Texans. I mean, you and I had talked about this one and CJ Stroud, and obviously the Texans won this one 23 points. It was a 26-3. Should have been a blowout. I mean, a complete shutout here, honestly. Like the Titans had a fun little streak there where they looked like they could put together a couple wins and then came right back down to earth.
Hmm.
But I mean, these Texans were, we've talked about this division already a few times. We're in that situation where, three-way tie here. CJ Stroud is trying to do everything he can to lead that team back to the playoffs. But I mean, how do you feel right now about this team?
I feel confident in this Texans team. I like them a lot. They're very talented. It's simple. It's as simple as getting C.J. Stroud back makes them very dangerous. I mean, they were winning. They won a game with Case Keenum at starter. So
Yeah.
that defense is very good, and C.J. Stroud really opens up that offense. They got Nico Collins back. Devin Singletary's doing his thing. Uh, Week 18 at the Colts with a chance to win the division. I expect the Texans to go into Indy and get a big win in that one on Saturday night. But that's going to be must-watch football, playoff atmosphere. And if the Jags trip up against Tennessee, then the Texans could win the division. And when we were doing our preseason picks and Week 1 talking about this Texans team, no one had them anywhere near contending for the division or making the playoffs. So big shout out to rookie CJ Stroud, rookie head coach D'Amico Ryans. This team is so much more talented than we thought they'd be.
Yeah, but let's also kind of reel that back in a little bit. Look at the starting quarterback injuries in that division.
Well,
I mean, would you be saying the same thing if the Colts hadn't lost their starting quarterback?
I don't know. I think that CJ Stroud was, I mean, even at the time, CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson, I don't think Anthony Richardson's better than CJ Stroud.
Okay.
Uh,
I just know you're a big Richardson fan. And
I
then
like Richardson a lot, yeah. Um, I mean, and the Jags are going to get Trevor Lawrence back, but half of this Jags losing streak was with Trevor Lawrence. Now I know he's been hurt a lot this year too.
yeah, and we've talked a lot about him playing through injuries and that, but
No, I
it just
I think this Texans team is legit. I really
oh,
do. I think
I agree. I think CJ Stroud is super talented, but I do feel like the division was less competitive than we thought it would be coming into this season because of all the injuries at quarterback.
to me, I thought the Jags were going to run away with this division, and the fact that
Yeah.
they haven't is eye opening to me. The Titans, I did expect the Titans to be better than they are, but I don't think any of it. I think the Texans would be in this spot regardless, and they're playing great football.
Okay. I was just curious because I know you really like Richardson, so I wasn't sure who you would have been on board with at this point if he
I
was
mean,
good.
Minshew has surprised me. The fact that the Colts are still in this thing with Minshew, they've been sneaky, like competitive.
I'm so annoyed with them. They're one of
Yeah,
those teams that like every week I pick them to win that they don't win. They're like the Broncos.
yeah.
If I pick them to win, they lose. Just like so the Broncos versus the Pats guys. I picked the Broncos to beat the Patriots, and then I said the Patriots are going to win because I picked the Broncos. So technically, I called it correctly, but I picked it wrong because the Pats did win just as I predicted. But yeah, I'm sick of that team. I'm not picking the Broncos anymore this season.
Yeah, there's a lot of teams. I mean, we talk about all over the league where it's like we just don't know who this team is on a week to week basis. One week they show
Mhm.
up, the next week they don't. I mean, how about the Seahawks? We thought the Seahawks were back. They're on a they're on a winning streak, right? They're playing confident, and then they kind of no show against the Steelers and kind of get pushed around. They had multiple opportunities to beat Pittsburgh at home. Mason Rudolph still leading the sleigh there in Pittsburgh, and they can't get it done. They lose at home to the Mason Rudolph led Steelers.
And I mean, the Seahawks were the team that kind of started the Eagles' skid there. Like,
Mm-hmm.
well, I guess it was the Cowboys the week before that, but they were there. I mean, it was I don't know who the Seattle team is. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head with that one. Is week to week, I don't know, and they have so much talent on offense.
Yeah,
Like, how are you gonna lose
defense
games
too,
with
and it
DK?
just doesn't show up. Yeah, it's so they're confusing.
They are, and I mean, luckily, I don't think we'll have to see too much of them in the postseason.
Well,
Um,
there's a chance they can still get in, and
I know, they're up for a wild card. I mean, they're
and if
eight
you're
and eight,
Packers,
so
they'll take care
Packers,
of business.
Saints, Tampa Bay. I see how it's playing out here. I'm rooting. But I don't think any of those 8 and 8 teams are going to be, going deep into the postseason. Um, just
Just a matter of consistency, right? They might be able to
yeah,
steal one win, but they're not stealing two, I don't think.
no, I mean like Green Bay going to the postseason, cool, yay for Jordan Love, but are we a Super Bowl worthy team? Absolutely not. Seattle
Yeah.
too. Like they okay, you won the wild card round. You're gonna go home next week, but that's fine. Like, and I mean, I feel like the Steelers, I mean, they're technically also in this conversation of potential playoff berths. Have they made an official call on who's starting against the Ravens?
I haven't seen it. I think they're riding with Rudolph. How do you bench Rudolph when he's 2-0?
Yeah, well, you and I had talked about that. I mean, like, so last week I was gonna assume they would start him again because I mean, he put up ridiculous numbers and now he's 2-0. I don't see them benching him.
Yeah, and I wonder
And
how that affects Kenny Pickett going forward.
I don't know. And like
Yeah,
Mason Rudolph doesn't seem like a starting quarterback. Like,
he doesn't, and Kenny Pickett hasn't played like a starting quarterback either, so it's kind of his fault.
yeah. And that's absolutely fair. But I mean, some of the plays in this game were insane. Like a
Hmm.
42-yard throw to Deontay Johnson in the third quarter. I mean, that one
He
was
seems
stunning.
he seems to have a little bit of chemistry with the receivers and George Pickens too. Pickens back to back weeks, making some incredible catches, another 131 yards. That's part of the reason the Steelers are here is George Pickens
Hmm.
and Rudolph playing well. So
And we thought that the Pickett Pickens combo, like that connection would be great. And it really hasn't taken off the way that people were predicting it would.
yeah, I was never a big Pickett fan coming out of the draft. And then I don't know if you were on this, but I know the national media was. Everyone was trying to just hand the job over to Jalen Warren at running back one. How about Najee Harris in this game?
Oh,
122
he's
yards, two touchdowns, and sealed the deal late with some big, tough runs.
Well,
Um,
that 42-yard pass I just mentioned set up Najee for that touchdown.
yeah,
And no, I was not on the Jalen Warren train.
good. That was national media, and they're annoying for that.
No. I'm glad that Najee chose now to have that breakout game. I mean, and they looked good against Seattle. One question on that team that I have an issue with, the secondary. Obviously I'm a little secondary sensitive with Green Bay being my team, but
Hmm.
I mean, Joey Porter Jr. looked like a junior high student trying to guard DK Metcalf for most of this game.
Yeah.
And
Well, Metcalf,
obviously
he
he's
can do
hard.
that to a lot of people
I was
too.
gonna say obviously he's hard to grab, but like man, he was completely outmatched there. And
Yeah.
he was someone we both really like. We loved him in the draft. But definitely some struggles there for sure.
Yeah, and it's a tough position to play, right? You're going up against Jamar Chase and Tyreek Hill one week and DK Metcalf the next, and there's a lot of talent at wide receiver one throughout the league, and he doesn't run from it. So at times you're going to look bad, but I'm still, a big fan of Joey Porter Jr. and
Yeah, and he's
hopefully
young
he
too.
bounces back. Yeah.
Yeah, and he kind of recovered in the fourth quarter. He had some great um, guarding there, but it definitely something as a whole they need to look at on that defense. I'm not blaming him for it at all. But I just secondary is a little questionable right now, which,
Mhm.
it is for many teams at the moment. But Seattle and Pittsburgh, I mean, two 8-7 teams, and it felt like a pretty even matchup in this game. Obviously the Steelers pulled ahead and won it, but I mean, I feel like Seattle should have won this. Like you're facing a backup quarterback. Granted, he's, on a a good win, coming off a good win here, over Christmas. But didn't this feel like Seattle should pull this one off and just kind of have like a bounce back win against a kind of mediocre team?
Absolutely. This is a game they should have won. The playoffs are on the line, and they couldn't get it done. And this might be a playoff. This might cost them the playoffs. And so, Pete Carroll's got to answer for that. The defense should have played better. And you look at the Seahawks and you wonder what's holding them back. They're talented as hell. You got Kenneth Walker, DK Metcalf, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. We know about that secondary. Bobby Wagner. They got talent. So they need to figure something out because it's an unacceptable loss at home to a backup quarterback, damn near third string quarterback.
Yeah, and like
So
they knew going into this game that Pittsburgh would be running the ball. Like
yeah,
it was
they
obvious.
got
It
pushed
was,
around. Yeah,
and they still allowed almost 200 yards, 40
yeah,
carries to those Steelers running backs. And like granted, Pittsburgh has some great running game, but I mean, when you know that's the team's talent, you figure out how to stop it. Like it wasn't like it
hmm
was a surprise. So yeah,
and
lots of questions about Seattle, but we can move on.
well,
Uh,
so real quick, there is an opportunity for the Steelers to sneak into the playoffs. Scenario is if the Bills lose to the Dolphins and the Steelers beat the Ravens and no Lamar Jackson for the Ravens. So if the Steelers win in Baltimore and the Bills lose in Miami, the Steelers will steal that seventh seed in the AFC. We both expect the Bills to win in Miami, I believe.
mhm.
And I think the Ravens, even with Tyler Huntley, are good enough to beat the Steelers with Mason Rudolph. But, you know,
There's
they
still
need
a
help,
chance.
but they have a chance. Yeah.
Hmm. That would be interesting.
Real quick, Chargers Broncos. We don't have to talk about this one much. Sean Payton benching Russell Wilson made no sense. Still doesn't make any sense. They're going to release him and move on from him. And you wonder what the Broncos, plan is at quarterback. Who out there are you going to add that's an upgrade or even close to what Russell Wilson's given you? Maybe Kirk Cousins. I don't know, but I don't really like this move from Sean Payton and the Broncos. Um, do
And
you?
it
I mean,
No, I think it's a situation where they're scapegoating a quarterback. I don't think Russell Wilson's numbers or his play or anything that he has done has caused the team to be, at, where are they now? 7-9. I don't think it's Russell
yeah.
Wilson's fault. I mean, if you look at his numbers, he was, top three, for
Yeah,
a lot of the stats. And I think it's a situation where his personality didn't mesh well with Sean Payton. Like we've seen Sean Payton ripping him a new one on the sidelines, which is not a good look for a team anyway. And I just think he misses the camaraderie he had with Drew Brees. I think personality wise, they just did not get along, him and Russ. And I think he's just kind of trying to cut his losses and hope that whatever happens next at the quarterback situation, whatever ends up working out, makes him look better than it being his fault that the team is below 500.
yeah, and Russell Wilson's going to be highly sought after. It's not like no one wants him. A team the like the Falcons would love Russell Wilson. How about a team like who was I just thinking
Titans.
of? The Steelers. How about the Steelers?
I
There's a
would like him
quarterback upgrade.
in Tennessee. I think he'd look good in that baby blue.
Yeah, I mean, he's an upgrade at a lot of different spots. And yeah, you put him with a young quarterback, whether it's Desmond Ritter or Will Levis, and they learn from him for a year or two, that could help out a lot. So we'll see what happens there. How about New England? If Bill Belichick stays, get a veteran quarterback like Russell Wilson, what could happen there? A lot of different things that could happen. But yeah, Denver. I don't know what direction they're going. Hopefully, Sean Payton has a plan in place. Um, but both the Broncos and Chargers are heading for an offseason where it's like, what are they going to do? Who are they going to? The Chargers are looking for a new head coach. The Broncos are looking for a new quarterback. Both going to miss the playoffs and down years based on expectations, both with playoff expectations, and neither of them got it done. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, and a tough year for Broncos fans. I mean, they looked like they were turning it on at the right time and kind of pulling together, a nice little win streak there, and then it just completely fell apart again.
Yeah,
Because
I mean, fire the defensive coordinator Vance Joseph, right? The defense was more of the reason you lost all these games than the quarterback.
yeah, it's a shame when quarterbacks get blamed for some of these situations when it should be a management and a coaching issue
Yeah,
that's addressed instead.
did we expect Russell Wilson to put up 71 against the Dolphins?
Oh, poor guy.
Yeah. Um, how about Bengals Chiefs? Man, I was rooting for Cincy in this game, and they were actually up 17-7. I mean, call me a hater. I love seeing all this Kansas City Chiefs sideline blowups and turnovers and dysfunction over there in Arrowhead. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, with all the commercials and all the news coverage, like we were bound to get sick of them eventually.
Hmm.
Like it's just been too much. I mean,
It's fun to root against Matt Nagy over there too, as a Bears fan.
yeah, that's fair. And I
And
mean,
Patrick
we've seen them
Mahomes,
make some moves as far as their coaching staffs were concerned that I mean, people who had experience with Matt Nagy, like we loved him in our division as Packers fans. Like, yeah, go ahead and stay. Keep coaching Chicago. It's great. But I mean, it was one of those situations where how do you not start to hate on the Chiefs? You know?
hmm
How do you not
well,
start to root against them?
I mean, some of the officiating that goes in their favor. I mean, we saw some of that against the Bengals on Sunday. We
Hmm.
saw it multiple times. It's well documented. And then it goes against them one time, and you see the blow up from Patrick Mahomes, the comments from Andy Reid. It makes them really easy to hate.
Yeah. I mean, but I mean, this game they had some big plays. I mean, they secured their AFC West title. But I mean, they pulled together a good game here. I can't really say a ton of negative things about this game. I mean, Pacheco had a good game here. MVS caught a ball, but I was kind of hoping for more of a back and forth, like evenly matched thing. And Jake Browning was neither Jake Brady nor Jake Grossman, as we joked about last week.
He was just
And
Jake Browning.
he was just Jake Browning. I mean, they had a great start, and great control of the clock as well. But then, Joe Mixon got stopped on that 4th and 1, and it really seemed to turn the game around there.
Yeah, credit to Kansas City's defense. They, after a slow start, they really tightened up and held them without a point for after a 17-7 lead, they shut them out. But the Chiefs offense, as well as, put Isaiah Pacheco is an absolute threat. Come playoff time, he's going to be someone you're going to have to game plan around. But outside of him, I don't see a lot of weapons, a lot of talent. Travis Kelce held to just 3 catches for like 14 yards. And the Chiefs really couldn't get into the end zone. They had to get back into this game slowly with field goal after field goal after field goal. 6 Harrison Butker field goals got them this win. So credit to the Chiefs defense, but you know, can they win? Are they, in your opinion, are the Chiefs still contenders in the AFC? With all the drops, with all the fumbles, with the play calling issues, can the Chiefs still win the AFC? I have my doubts, especially against teams like the Ravens and the
The
Bills,
Browns.
the Browns. There's multiple teams here that could give them, a tough time.
I would be shocked if the Chiefs go to the Super Bowl. Even if
Yeah.
they make it to the AFC Championship game, I would be shocked. They're a very different team than they were last year. And this matchup, I was a bit concerned about the Bengals offense coming in hot, but I mean, one of my favorite kind of under the radar players in this game for the Chiefs had an amazing game. L'Jarius Sneed. I mean, he was on
Yeah.
Ja'Marr Chase, which is a tough ask. That is a tall order for anyone. But he was on him for 21 of his 34 routes. And of those routes that he was on, he held him to 2 receptions and only 27 yards.
Yeah.
So, I
Hell of a
mean,
job.
they have so much individual talent on this team, but something about coaching or play calling, the Chiefs are just not pulling together these big impressive wins we would expect at this point in the season.
They don't see him as a multi-time champion. They don't seem to be mentally tough, mentally strong. They seem to be blowing up on the sideline almost every game,
Hmm.
and it's kind of taken after the personality of their star quarterback. And we saw him blow up and lose his cool, and you're seeing the frustrations, and you've seen it from Mahomes in multiple games, seen it from Kelsey, saw it from the defense in this game when they're down 17-7. So can they keep it together? And they might be looking to add some talent. Star defensive end Chris Jones tweets after the game for the Chiefs to bring back free agent Frank Clark for the playoff run. Uh, he's got 0 sacks this season, but he had 2.5 sacks in last year's playoff run. So, they want that veteran presence and playmaking ability from Frank Clark. We'll see if that happens. But yeah, I don't. I outside of Isaiah Pacheco and Travis Kelsey, I don't see a lot of playmakers. A lot of drops, and Mahomes creating miracles when people aren't open and running for his life. And so we'll see. But the Chiefs are not the same juggernaut going into the playoffs as we've seen before.
Yeah, and it's a nice break. It's a nice to mix things up.
And let me be very clear though, the Chiefs are gonna be hard to beat. It doesn't matter. I know they're down, but in Arrowhead, they're always tough to beat.
And postseason
And
Andy Reid, I mean,
yeah, and they're gonna be, on paper, what I have right now, I have Dolphins at Chiefs. I mean, that's no gimme. Dolphins at Chiefs. I mean, if the Dolphins are healthy, they could come in there and put up some points on them and make it life difficult. So
yeah. Um, let's move on to my Packers. I know this is a game that you were hoping that the Packers would lose so you could talk shit. But I talked you into maintaining your Packers pick here, and obviously I was right. The Packers won in Minnesota 33-10. Um, Jordan Love had an amazing game. He
yeah,
threw for 256 yards, 3 touchdowns. Um, Jaden Reed, our rookie wide receiver, stepped in because Christian Watson was out yet again. And something we've seen from Jordan Love, like back in the day, Aaron Rodgers, he had favorite receivers. And I mean, the ball was going to Devontae or was going to Cobb or Jordy or who else? James Jones. Like he had 2 to 3 favorite receivers that he threw to almost every play. Jordan Love spreads the ball around. But there was one breakout player in this game who I've been loving to watch, Bo Melton. We signed him up from the practice squad 3 weeks ago, put him on the active roster, and I mean 105 yards on 6 receptions in this game.
well, Bo Melton. I thought that was Donald Driver.
I mean,
I saw
he
number
plays like
80
him.
catching passes and touchdowns. I thought that was Donald Driver again. They haven't retired Donald
I was just
Driver's
gonna say,
number?
I was shocked they didn't retire his number. When I saw him wearing
Yeah.
it, I was kind of pissed off at first. But I mean, he's playing like Donald, so I'll let it slide. Yeah, I could not
Yeah.
believe they didn't retire his number.
Yeah, it's always weird when you see that. Like the Vikings were rocking the 84 jersey with Cordell Patterson. It's like, retire that. That's Randy Moss. We all know that.
Yeah. But
Um,
just like there's been some weird jerseys worn this year, like Mason Crosby wearing jersey number 2021 for the
yeah,
Giants.
Tiki Barber. Why isn't that retired, right?
Yeah, I'm like, what the and a kicker? Like, oh my God.
I think I want to see a Lions player wearing number 20. Like, come on now. Let's keep it going. no need to retire Barry Sanders' number.
It's fine. Just throw it
Let's
back
put
in.
Jordan Love in a number 4, or the backup quarterback in a number 4. How about that?
Yeah, I mean, there's been some interesting numbers this season for sure. But I mean, back to the Packers. Aaron Jones, again, amazing player when he's in the game. 120 yards on the ground, second straight game of over 100 yards. So obviously, it's great to have him back from his injuries. And then the Vikings, I mean, they changed quarterbacks, and then Nick Mullins is in, and then Jaron Hall. And I mean, I am honestly disappointed that Kirk Cousins isn't in right now because I would love to see these teams with both starting quarterbacks match up against each other,
No, you don't want to see that. The Vikings would kick their ass with Kirk Cousins.
which is fine. I want to see the good matchups. Like it is Jordan Love's first full year as a starter. Give me the full strength. I don't want this watered down Kool-Aid matchup. Give me the full strength in his first season, which is
Yeah,
kind of my stance on the I don't have any expectations for their record. I just want them to click and learn, learn the team and see how well they play together. And I think a full strength Vikings with Kirk Cousins would be a great test for our defense because our defense
yeah,
had a game.
yeah, and you start Jaron Hall, the rookie, you kind of asking for it, and it would have been just for me to take an L, believing in Jaron Hall, and then they put in Nick Mullins, who, isn't very good either, turnover machine. So, um, good job kicking the Vikings' ass in Minnesota on New Year's Eve night. Statement win, 33-10, and it sets them up with a position to go to the playoffs. And like you said, you had no expectations for this team, and and a quietly competitive. Even though Kirk Cousins got hurt, the Vikings were 7-8. They're right there with the Packers at 7-8. And the fact that the Packers can sneak into the playoffs here, that's an accomplishment. And it's, you're going to get the fully ready to go Bears, though. And that defense is going to be tested because Justin Fields playing some of the best football of his career. Good luck sacking him. He's going to shrug that tackle off and go for 20 yards rushing.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that Green Bay Chicago matchup. I think it's going to be super fun. I really like both of these quarterbacks and how they're shaping up. In their first couple seasons, I think it's going to be a great matchup, and I'm excited for the future of the NFC North.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we love Bears Packers. It's a rivalry, our two favorite teams, and I'm hoping it's different. I'm tired, extremely tired of getting our ass kicked by the Packers. And week 1, we were feeling great. Like, hey, Aaron Rodgers is gone. This is our time now. Let's go kick Green Bay's ass in Chicago with a statement to start the season, and we get our ass kicked. And no more Aaron Rodgers. It's Jordan Love doing it. So that definitely left a bad taste in our mouth to start the season. Hopefully, the Bears show up in this game and play much better in Lambeau to finish the season out strong. And it's an opportunity for us to keep our hated rivals out of the playoffs. But we'll see if we can get it done because Green Bay's had the Bears number forever, it seems like. And it's a great opportunity for Green Bay too to beat a rival and get into the playoffs. And how about this scenario that could set up because if the Packers win, they're likely going to get the 6th seed if the
Mhm.
Rams lose to the 49ers and the Rams are benching all their guys. So it's a good opportunity for the Packers to get the 6th seed and set up a Thanksgiving rematch in Detroit, a game you guys won.
And I feel like we're playing better right now than we were on
Yeah.
Thanksgiving.
And
Um,
look, I don't root for the Packers often. If it's Packers at Lions in the playoffs in the wild card, go Green Bay.
Yeah. And my issue here is I don't have playoff hopes this season. Like I don't think Green Bay is going to the Super Bowl or the NFC Championship. Um, but they start making postseason runs. And like in this game, I was fully invested. Like I don't want to get my hopes up and get crushed. I'm a Packers fan. We're used to going to the NFC Championship and losing. Like, I don't want, I would rather miss the playoffs and get to enjoy the playoffs as an objective viewer than to be personally and emotionally involved and invested. So from my my, podcaster kind of sports broadcasting viewpoint, I don't really want the Packers to go because I don't think they're going to make it to the Super Bowl. But it's making for an interesting season.
I'll tell
And
you. So Justin Fields with this quote, I know their fans are going to be loud because there's not much to do in Green Bay besides watch football. That's my
excuse
quarterback.
me,
I love
Wis
it.
Wisconsin has like 10 of the top 15 most drunkest cities in the US. So they also drink, sir. Thank you
So they're
very
going to be
much.
really loud, is what you're saying.
You're going to be hammered and loud. Something
Um,
that's interesting is that the Packers reached out to Antonio Brown this week,
okay.
um, to just
I
kind of
don't.
like, hey, would you be interested in joining the team? Should we make the postseason? I mean, he is cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs and always running his mouth on social media. But we have talked all season about how Green Bay should have brought in a veteran wide receiver. And I mean, a 35-year-old wide receiver is definitely a vet.
He can still ball too.
He
I
can
mean,
ball. He's
yeah, I've been a AB fan ever since Pittsburgh.
Yeah, he's
Uh,
just crazy. Like
I would
that
love to see
Pittsburgh team
him.
with the bees, who they
Yeah,
had Le'Veon Bell, Martavis Bryant,
Big
Big Ben,
Ben.
AB. I mean, that was
Yeah.
insane. They were so stacked on offense. But yeah, I would not hate that. But five other teams have reached out as well. So we will see how that plays out.
So I'll tell you what I prefer here. My scenario to close this podcast out. Um, as a Bears fan, of course, I'm rooting for the Bears. I want the Bears to keep the Packers out of the playoffs, and that would get the Seahawks into the playoffs if they win, and the Rams to go to the sixth seed, and it would be Rams at Lions. Matthew Stafford back in Detroit, Ford Field. So the Lions are fans are going to be all excited. Detroit hosting a playoff game for the first time since '91, and guess what? Here comes our former guy Matthew Stafford. I would love to see him knock the Lions out of the playoffs. That would be awesome. But if that doesn't happen and the Packers beat Chicago and get into the sixth seed, I want the Packers to beat Detroit. What a bitter taste in the Lions' mouth there. Packers beat Detroit,
This
win a
shit
playoff
again.
game. Huh?
Just for Lions fans, like, oh, this shit again. Green Bay beating
Yeah.
us and crushing our playoff dreams.
I
Perfect.
mean, and as a Packers fan, you would love that, right? You beat the Bears to get into the playoffs, then you end the Lions' magical season in the playoffs and get a playoff win. And Jordan Love would have to play well to get that win. And then it'll get your hopes up and you'll be all excited
And
just to
then
get to the divisional round and go to San Francisco and
oh,
get
and get our
reminded.
asses completely kicked.
Yup,
Lose
yup.
by 40. If we can just knock the rest of the NFC North out of the playoffs, I think that'll be enough for me. I think Packers fans would be content.
I want you to watch that Niners game though. That'll be fun for me too.
Just want to watch it live on the podcast and show me fucking throwing shit at my TV.
But
Perfect.
either way, man, I can't wait for these playoffs. It's going to be so good. And week 18, there's a lot of quote unquote playoff games coming up. So,
Yeah, and we'll make those picks and have those ready for you guys Friday night. So tune in for that
yeah.
one and we will bicker some more on that one for sure.
All right. Good to have you back, Amanda. Good to have someone to argue and go, banter back and forth with on this one. Looking forward to our picks on Friday night. And good shit as always. Appreciate all the support, guys. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a comment. Let us know what you think. Stay tuned for the interviews. And peace out.